straight.
White.
White.
We gotta figure it out.
Oh, so the topic that we're talking about today is personal growth and relationships. Why don't we answer these questions? What does personal growth look like?
I'm actually gonna steal something you said and say that it's about accepting the chaos. Personal growth is, we mentioned yesterday, self-actualization. Um, and specifically when I think about personal growth for me, there is not a moment that's not chaotic in my life. Like my life is set by chaos. My life started with chaos, if I'm to be quite literal. Um, and for me, I think there's always been that battle of how do I ride the chaos and how do I make peace out of the chaos that is my life. And I have learned a lot of it is accepting it, accepting it as it is and not fighting it. And there's a difference between living with the chaos and working with the chaos. I feel like if I were to say I was to live with the chaos, which I have done, that's kind of to let the chaos take over, right? To get lost in it. It's like, okay, it's a chaotic life, kicked out of the house at 17. Um, Family is a low income family, homelessness, like that, just live with it and just be embraced by it and lost in it. But for me, personal growth has meant to work with it, and that means acknowledging it in its fullness, right? And sometimes that can be overwhelming, looking at chaos in the eye and being like, wow, okay, dysfunctional family dynamic, woo, all right, all around, every box in its entirety, like that can be challenging to look at, but acknowledging it and moving through it with love and great, right? Like I always try to meet these situations with, okay, like just because this is a chaotic moment does not mean these are chaotic people, right? Does not mean I am a chaotic person. And try to just move through wherever my foot steps by. I just need to make sure that path is clear. Wherever my foot is going to go next, that path needs to be clear. And that's what I mean by working through the chaos. Like I'm going through it like the chaos is not going to end. It's pretty sure that's like the tone for my life. But that doesn't mean that my life has to be chaotic, right? And I'm in this moment in life right now where I'm starting to really understand that. And I'm like, okay, I can move through this chaos. I can take the steps and make it through the other side to peace. I just got to get through the storm. And I can't control the storm. I can't stop it from happening. I can't move it out the way. I can't prolong it. I just have to take the steps that I know I can take and move through how I know I can move through. And a lot of that comes from so much work. So much self-work and shadow work and healing and acknowledging trauma. Again, looking at the chaos as a whole, looking at it in its entirety.
Looking at it, it's an entirety. It's one big painting. That's gorgeous.
What is-
I'm glad that you started with self-actualization because I think that that's very important and I think it's highly universal. Um, and I want to thank you for answering that question and also including the things that I said because that gives us more time to get to the next question, which is what challenges do we face in personal growth? I'll go ahead and start with this one. I think the challenges that we face, and I know you said accepting the chaos, but I think also accepting the flaws in yourself, and then also after you accept your whole self, being honest about that self to the people you love who aren't familiar with it, or to the people that you have to deal with who aren't familiar with that version of yourself. And you have to be willing to accept that reaction or the possibility of a bad reaction that can come from revealing your true self to someone once you manifest that. I know the biggest thing that I had to accept about myself was the immense fear that I had, the immense fear and anxiety when it came to just about everything. And now I'm in a place where that anxiety still exists, but I'm able to live with it a little bit better because I'm honest about it. I'm not trying to be strong and do anxious things in secret. Like, I'm letting it out that I'm anxious. I'm letting people know that I'm anxious, and then I'm letting it go, and then I'm doing the thing that I was anxious about anyway. Because it's a lot easier for me to admit that the emotion is there and then move on. I think I talked about this before. This is a different emotion though. This is anger. I had to admit to an old friend of mine that I was angry at him. Someone that I usually don't get angry at because, how can you? They're one of my best friends, honestly, one of the best friends that I've ever had. But I was angry at them because I felt like they had abandoned me. And I sort of kept it in and didn't actually say how angry I was about that, because then I'd have to admit that I needed them in my life as a friend, and I was afraid that they would use that against me, or that would go against me in some way, or say something about my viability as a human being, that I needed someone else, and I'd be afraid to lose them. And I felt like if I wasn't honest about that, and if I didn't admit it, then it wouldn't be a reality. And for some things, that's just not how that works. As soon as you feel a certain thing, sometimes that is a reality. And I needed this person, and they were, one of my best friends. And I had to admit, hey, I am pissed at you. I've been pissed at you for years for the way that our friendship turned out. And I'm pissed that you tried to come back and make it seem like it was okay to talk again. And even though I kind of made it seem like it was okay, I'm still angry. And we kind of backtracked and we had a talk about it in detail, about kind of like the things that happened and the way I took it and how he meant it. And then we wound up talking about what video game I'm playing right now. Like, the anger just completely dissipated. And it was like after that I could just talk about video games. And that's important, being able to tackle those parts of ourselves. And then with for example, my peers or my parents or people of authority, it's more like, look, this is who I was the whole time. I was trying to perform this idea of who you wanted me to be. This is actually who I am. Whether or not you accept this reality is not up to me anymore. It's up to you. And I've had to do that to a ton of people. I've had to show myself to a ton of people. I've sent emails to teachers. I've sent texts to teachers. I've had conversations with my parents. I've taught, and this is all while I'm dealing with the biological family business, which is even more affirming of my identity. And it's given me kind of like this safety net of, oh wow, okay, so most things about me that I felt judged for are actually pretty much ingrained in me. So I have no choice but to defend this. This is me. I'm not going to change this. I have biological evidence to back this up. It's not going anywhere. You know what I mean? And I have two families that will defend me at all costs. That also means that I have two generational traumas to, how do I say this? Unpack. Two families worth of generational curses to undo. But I also have two families backing me up, and I have a feeling that there are more to come. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And that in and of itself is a challenge. But I don't know, insert what Spider-Man said here. I'll probably add in a clip.
With great power
Good.
comes great responsibility.
I actually have something that I think relates to the next question, which is that's your cue.
How do your relationships, platonic, familial, and romantic, affect your personal growth?
That one.
Lay it on me.
Just kind of came to me. And I wrote, it hurts when you choose to love someone that doesn't see you. And by see you, I mean like know you and see you for who you are. But I'm learning that there are people who choose to love me because they see me. And I feel like that relates to pretty much every relationship I have ever dealt with, all types of relationships I've ever dealt with since growing up. Like, I feel like there are moments when I am seeking out the love of someone, and the reason why it never works, whether it's my mother, my father, my sisters, romantic relationships, friendships, the reason why it never worked is because they couldn't see me. They literally could not see me, and they did not know who I was. So I was out there really trying to love them, and they were trying to love the version of me they wanted me to be. And I didn't understand that that's what they were doing. I didn't understand that they didn't see me. I thought my whole thing is like, I'm exactly who I am. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is me, and I want to give you love. And that's not who they wanted me to be. So they couldn't give that love back to me the way that I was giving it to them. But as I started to grow secure in myself and really embrace, the totality of, wow, okay, this is what my life is. This is who I am. This is the environment that I live in. This is the environment that I grew up in. This is who my family is. As soon as I started to really understand that and accept that and not try to change it into what I want it to be, that's when I started to see the people who came to me and loved me because they saw exactly who I was. I didn't have to force it. And there were so many relationships I'm still working on, especially within my family, that still they don't see me. Like, there's still people who don't see me. And I find myself accepting that, right? Like, you don't know who I am yet. After all this time, but you still don't know who I am yet. And that's okay. I can have love for you, but I am not going to go out of my way to make you feel that love. Because as long as you do not see me for who I am, you will never receive it in the way that it needs to be received. And it's so fresh. Like, it's like literally happened like maybe 2 hours ago that it popped up into my mind. But like, I'm like, wow, like that's it. Like, this whole time I just needed to truly accept who I am and lead with that. And I don't need to force my love on anyone, because I am a lover. I lead with love. Like, who I am is love, right? Like, how I interact is love. I don't need to force that. I don't need to say, hey, look at me. I don't need to do that. And the people who recognize that are the ones who choose to love me back. They're the ones who choose to show up for me. And because they see me, they know what I need or what I don't need whenever the moment arises. That's definitely something I'm learning. It also goes with, like, the biggest challenge. But yeah, I realized that if within a relationship you can't love me. You may want to love me because I'm amazing. I literally lead with love. Whatever you see, you definitely see love there. You may not know what type of love it is because you don't see the real me, but you definitely, and you want a piece of it. I get it. People don't want me out of their lives. It's painful when I leave people, and I'm realizing that.
Yeah.
It's painful when I leave people's lives, but it's more painful for them because they don't even realize what they let go. They don't even realize,
because they don't even know what their own needs are. They don't know what they're lacking. They just know how they feel when they're around you, but they're not thinking critically about what they're feeling towards you. They're just trying to see how they can get more of that feeling. And it's not always in a malicious way,
right?
But it can get to a point where it just might as well be.
Right. Because you're no longer, and again, that's the seeing me part, right? Because if you see me, you should know that you don't have to do anything extra to get love out of me. But it starts to feel malicious when you don't want to let me go because of your own selfish need. Because you haven't faced your feelings, you haven't faced your fears. Exactly. You haven't faced yourself. So now there's something within you that's lacking, and you need me to feel that. And I'm not going to go into detail, but my mom and I have had to have a lot of work to get past that point where I'm not the daughter you need me to. I'm the daughter you have.
And also, like if you need your daughter to be something, that's a huge issue. You need a therapist. You need healing, because the whole point of being a mother is not expecting your daughter to be anything, because that's one of the first ways that you pass around trauma. That's one of the first ways that you pass around trauma, is that you're putting this responsibility on your children to be the legacy of all of these things that you've went through. But sometimes you wind up passing on that trauma, thinking that it's a legacy. Exactly, and thinking that that's what legacy is, and that's not. The legacy is what you do to enrich the life of your child so that they can survive and find joy in this life. See, and I think a lot of our generations, especially the further you go back, the further you realize this, joy was almost criminalized. Our joy, our laughter, our excitement, those beautiful, happy emotions, those were constantly criminalized for generations. 400 to 600 years worth of generations of criminalizing joy and happiness. Imagine what that does. Imagine what kind of mental issues it causes when you're criminalizing joy among generations. And imagine thinking that that's a legacy, thinking of this like having to struggle to survive, having to suffer, having to go through pain, thriving in that suffering. Yes, of course, it makes sense as a coping mechanism centuries ago. That's the only way that you would live. Okay, you were either jumping in the ocean or you would have to get used to pain. That was it. The generations that survived got used to pain, and they tried to turn it into empowerment. Literally turning lemons into what? Lemonade? Right. And that worked back then. It had to work so that we could survive. But now it's about finding that joy, getting that joy back, taking back what we lost. That is the new rebellion. That's the new defiance, is being happy, is laughing loud, singing loud, enjoying one's life. And unfortunately, due to how things went, we weren't necessarily raised to experience those emotions or to prioritize those emotions in our lives. But we technically, physically had the freedom to do it, in a way, to an extent. There's still a lot more we still have a long, long way to go. But we have this window where we can try to learn to experience joy at the highest level. For me, that's like a final frontier. And so I hope that's something that you're also thinking about, because I think that might be a frontier for you. I don't know if it's the final one. I don't know if it's the final one for me, but I'm a Star Trek fan, so I'm gonna call it the final frontier.
I mean, I think joy should definitely be a final frontier for everyone. And when I look back on any relationship where I felt love, I want joy to be the surrounding feeling. And I can say that with practicing all of my healing and learning from all the lessons that pile themselves on, there's so many relationships in which I feel loved. You're one of them. That I truly feel joy around, that there's truly joy. And again, it's because these are relationships in which I was seen for who I am. I did not have to give anything extra. I did not have to change who I was. I accepted every bit of chaos in totality, and these people saw that I was living in chaos, or that I came with chaos. And I don't mean drama, different, but that there was chaos around me, and they saw that she's the eye of the storm. She's the calm in the midst of it all. I see you. And not that I need to take anything from that, just see you. And I feel joy around knowing that I have those relationships. And I feel very encouraged about moving forward and healing a lot more relationships.
I get a kick out of cheering you on, right? It's one of my favorite things.
I love you.
I love you too. Also, that lighting it's so good. So I'm Juul.
I'm Shaun.
And we are
2
straight
white
men.